back to my channel today. Thank you so much for stopping by. In this video, we'll be making this off-shoulder wrap top and this short pants that you can see on your screen. For this tutorial, I'll be making use of my Ankara fabric and it's 3 yards. So if this is what you're interested in, keep on watching and let's get started. So I already have my pattern paper on my work table. I'll start by taking my point. The distance from my shoulder to my bust point is 10 inches. I'll indicate that and I'll rule a straight line across, and I'm going to measure the distance from my shoulder to my top length, which is going to be 17 inches because this is a crop top. I'm going to indicate that and I'll also rule a straight line across. So I have my bust point and my waistline, which is my top length. On my shoulder line, which is the start of this pattern paper, I'll take half of my shoulder measurement, which is 8 inches, and for my neckline I'm going to take 3 inches as my neck width and 1 inch as my neck depth. So this pattern paper is what we'll be using to cut the front and the back. So the back neckline is not that deep, that is why I'm taking 1 inch for the depth. I'm going to use my ruler to connect the 2 points together like this. The next thing I'll do is to go down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope. I'll indicate the 1 inch with a point and then I'll slant from there into the neckline. To get my chest line, I'm going to go up from my bust point by 2 inches. So whatever your bust point is, just go up by 2 inches. That is how to get your chest line. I'll indicate that. I'll also rule a straight line across and I'll label it my chest line. So the measurement I have on my shoulder line is 8 inches. I'll place the same measurement on my chest line and then I'll connect the dots on the chest line to meet the dots on the shoulder slope into a straight line. I'll place my tape on the straight line and I'll measure what I have, which is 7 inches. I'll divide it into 2. Half of 7 inches is 3.5 inches. I will indicate that with a point. On that point, I'll go inward by half an inch. And on my chest line, I'm going to place my bust circumference divided by 4. I'll also indicate that with a point. And I'm going to use my ruler to curve out my armhole. So I'll connect from my shoulder slope to meet the half an inch point and to meet the point on my chest line like this. The next thing I'll do is to take in my dart. So I'm going to take half of my nipple to nipple measurement, which is 4 inches. I'm going to place 4 inches on my top length, on my bust point and on my chest line, and I'll connect the 3 dots into a straight line. So I'm taking in my dart because this is the back. I'll be using this pattern to cut out the back before cutting the front. So I'm going to take half an inch on my center front and half an inch on my side front and I'll connect from there to meet my chest line. After taking in my dart, I already have my bust circumference divided by 4 on my chest line. So on my top length, which is also my waistline, I'll take my waist circumference divided by 4 and I'll replace the dart of 1 inch. After doing that, I'll use my ruler to connect the point on the chest line to meet the point on the waistline. So as you guys can see on the thumbnail, this is an off shoulder top, so we don't need this shoulder area. What I'm going to do is to take out some inches from the shoulder area. So I'm going to place my tape like this and I'll go down by 5 inches. After doing that, I'm going to indicate the 5 inches with the point and I'll rule a straight line across that point. So guys, after doing that, we have our new neckline. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out what I have. So just look at what I'm doing carefully. So this is the pattern paper we'll be needing to cut our back piece. I'm going to fold my fabric into 2 equal halves, and I'm going to place this pattern paper on my fabric to cut the back piece. This top does not have a zip, so there is no need to add zipper allowance, but make sure that your center back is on fold. I'm going to place my fabric like this, and I'll leave about half an inch on the base and also 1/4 inch on the upper part of my fabric, because I'm going to hem. After doing that, I'll pin my fabric all the way around, and I'll add stitching allowance to the side. Remember, we did not add stitching allowance to the pattern paper, so I went ahead to add half an inch for my stitching allowance. I'll go ahead and notch my dart so that I'll know where to take my dart when I'm sewing. After doing that, I'm going to go ahead and remove my pattern paper. So guys, this is our back piece. I'm going to keep this aside and we'll go ahead and work on the front. So for the front, I'm going to create like a curve so that when you wrap your top, you're going to see that curvy effect on the chest line area. So what I'll do is to place my ruler from the armhole area, and I'll curve to meet the chest line. So you can make yours deeper, you can curve all the way to your bust point, but I don't want to reveal my chest area, so that's why I stopped on the chest line. So I'm going to go ahead and fold my fabric into 2 like this, and then I'm going to place my pattern paper on my fabric. So remember, I left half an inch on the base for the back. I'll also repeat the same thing for the front. I'm going to pin my pattern paper on my fabric, but before I do that, I'll make sure that I have a lot of allowance on the center front of my fabric. And then after doing that, I'll go ahead and pin all the way around, and then I'll trim off the side. I will add my half an inch allowance on the side. I'll trim the armhole, and on the neckline area, I'm going to add half an inch, which is going to serve as my hemming allowance. I'll do that and I'll connect the dots. After doing that, the next thing I'll do is to extend my front piece. So remember, this is a wrap top, so we'll be needing this extension to wrap it. I'll extend it by 8.5 inches, and then on that edge I'm going to go up by 2 inches. That is where I'm going to attach the rope that I'll be using to wrap the top. Then I'm going to use my ruler to connect from that point to meet my chest line like this. So guys, after connecting, I'll go ahead and cut, and then I'll open it up for you guys to see. So as you can see, we have 2 pieces, okay, one for the left and one for the right. So if you want to use a lining, you can go ahead and cut your lining the same way that you cut out your fabric, but I'm not going to do that. You can see the curvy effect that we have on the front part. I'll keep this aside and we'll go ahead and cut the sleeves. So for the sleeves, I went ahead to fold my fabric into 4 because I'll be cutting the 2 sleeves together, and the length of my sleeves is 28 inches. The wideness of my fabric is 11 inches on fold, meaning one sleeve is 22 inches wide. So I'll bring in my back pattern, and before I place my back pattern on my sleeves, I'll go ahead and fold in 1.5 inch or 1 inch. It depends on the size of your elastic band. So for me, I'll go down by 1.5 inch. This is going to serve as my elastic casing. I'm going to fold it to create my elastic band casing. I'll pin it down, and then I'll bring in the armhole area of my back piece. I'll place it on the opened edge of my sleeves like this, and I'll go ahead and trim out the armhole area. So guys, after cutting, I'll go ahead and remove the back piece, and that is all we have to do for now. We'll be sewing the sleeves later, but make sure the armhole area of your sleeves and the armhole area of your top is matching. The next piece I'll be cutting is the rope that I'll be using to wrap our top. So the length of my rope is 38 inches and I have 2. The wideness is 5 inches. So I'm going to fold it into 2 right sides facing each other, and I'll sew half an inch all the way to the end. Once I turn it over, I'll be left with 2 inches, and 2 inches is the space that we left on the top to attach our band. So guys, we are through with the top. We'll go ahead and draft out our pants. So for my pants, I already have my pattern paper on my work table, and I'll start by taking my point. So I'm going to be adding a band to this pant, a band of 2 inches. So I'm going to be taking out 2 inches before I take my point. So I'm going to remove 2 inches, and I'm going to mark the distance from my waist to my hip, which is 8 inches. I'll indicate that, and I'll rule a straight line across, and the start of this pattern paper is my waistline. Still taking out the 2 inches for my band, I'll mark my pants length, which is going to be 16 inches. I'll also rule a straight line across. I'll go ahead and add 2 inches to the length of my pants for my hemming allowance. I'll also rule a straight line across. After doing that, I'm going to place my hip circumference divided by 4, which is 9.5 inches. I'll place it on my waistline. I'll place the same measurement on my hip line, and I'll connect the point on the waistline to meet the point on the hip line like this. After doing that, the next thing I'll do is to get my crotch line. So to get your crotch line, there are 2 ways to go about it. You can measure your hip measurement that you just placed on your hip line. Okay, you measure it and you go ahead and divide it by 4. So I'll fold my tape into 2 like this, and I'll fold it again into another 2. So whatever I have, I'm going to add half an inch to it. So once you do that, you'll be able to get your crotch line. And another method is what I'm going to be showing you guys on the screen. Okay, that is how I normally do mine, and it comes out really accurate. So a video will be displaying on the screen on how to do this method. This is the one I usually do. So after placing my tape like this, what I had was 24 inches. I'm going to divide it by 2, which is 12 inches, and then I'll add half an inch to that 12 inches. Okay, so I'm going to take out the 2 inches for the band, and I'm going to mark my 12.5 inches, and I'll rule a straight line across. I'm going to label that line my crotch line. So I'm going to place the same measurement that I have on the waistline and on the hip line. I'll place that measurement on my crotch line. After doing that, I'll connect the dots into a straight line. Next thing I'll do is to get my crotch extension line. To do that, I'm going to place my tape on my crotch line, and whatever I have, I'm going to divide it by 4. So the measurement on my crotch line is my hip circumference divided by 4. After dividing it by 4, what I had was 2.5 inches or thereabouts. I'm going to approximate it and make it 3 inches. So I'm going to place my tape on the line that I have, and I'll mark 3 inches outside the line. Okay, after doing that, I'm going to use my ruler to create my crotch extension line like this. So the next thing I'll do is to place my tape on my waistline like this, and I'll take my waist circumference divided by 4. And if you want to take in your dart, you can add your dart allowance, but I'm not going to take in my dart for this tutorial. Well, I'm going to teach you guys how to do that. Okay, on my tie line, which is the length of my pants, I'm going to take my round tie measurement divided by 2, and then I'm going to add 1 inch for ease. Now connect from my crotch extension line to meet my pants length. And for the waistline, like I said before, if you want your waist area to be fitted, take your waist circumference divided by 4 and also add your dart allowance. So for me, I want to pleat the waist area, so I don't want to take in my dart. I changed my mind halfway, so I'll teach you guys how to take in your dart. I'll place my tape on my center front, and I'll take half of my nipple to nipple measurement, which is 4 inches. I'll indicate that with a point, and then I'll go down by 3 inches, which is going to be the length of my dart. I'll connect the 2 points into a straight line. So I'm going to take half an inch on both sides, and then I'll connect to meet the base of the dart. Okay, so that is how to take your dart. But for me, I'm not going to take in my dart. I want to pleat, so I'm going to leave the hip measurement that we have on the waistline. I'm going to leave it like that. After pleating the allowance, I'll be left with my waist measurement on it. So in case you don't understand, I'm going to walk you guys through the process, so don't be scared, okay? So I'm going to place my tape like this to confirm the measurements that I have. So I'm not going to cut out anything from this pattern paper. So my waist circumference divided by 4 is 7 inches and my dart is 1 inches. So I placed 8 inches and then I connected from that 8 inches to meet my hip line. So if you don't want to pleat, this is what you should do. Take your waist circumference divided by 4 and add your allowance for your dart and then connect from that point to meet your hip line. And when you are cutting, you are going to cut the hip part just like you see me folding it in. You are going to cut that part out, okay? But since I want to pleat, I'll leave that part open. And then this is how I'm going to pleat. Just like I'm just going to make 2 pleats like this using the allowance that I have left on my fabric, okay? So guys, we are done with the front pattern. I'm going to place my pattern on my fabric folded into 2 and I'm going to cut. In case you did not add stitching allowance to your pattern paper, make sure you add stitching allowance while cutting on your fabric. So I already added my own stitching allowance to the measurement, that is the hip measurement that I used. That is why I did not add stitching allowance. And don't forget to notch your dart. In case you are taking in your dart, go ahead and notch it so you know where to take in your dart when you are sewing. So after cutting, guys, I have these 2 pieces. What I'm going to do is to fold place them on each other, right sides facing each other, and then I'm going to sew the crotch area. So guys, for the back, I'll go ahead and fold my fabric into 2 like this and I'll bring in my pattern paper. So I need you guys to pay close attention to this back piece. So I'm going to pin my pattern paper, making sure that I have allowance on the crotch area of my fabric. After doing that, I'm going to go ahead and extend my crotch line so that the front crotch line and the back crotch line will be sitting together by the time I'm done cutting. So after doing that, I'm going to go ahead and increase this crotch area by 2.5 inches. So if you're on the bigger side, you can do 2.5 inches, you can do 3 inches. So I'll follow the shape that I have. So just look at what I'm doing. I'm following the shape that I have on my pattern paper, and on the crotch extension line I'm going to increase it by 3 inches, okay? Because I increased the front by 3 inches, I'm going to connect like this to meet the 3 inches points that I have on the crotch extension line, okay? So I decided to reduce my crotch line and make mine 2 inches. So I'm going to repeat the same thing that I did. I'll connect like this to meet the 3 inches. So after doing that, guys, on the waistline I'm going to go up by 2 inches. Please pay close attention, this is very important. I'll go up by 2 inches and I will indicate that with a point. I'll connect it to meet my crotch line just like you see me doing. After doing that, I'm going to measure what I have on my pattern paper. On the waistline of my pattern paper, I'll measure what I have. So after placing my tape, what I had was 9.5 inches. So I'm going to place my tape from the crotch extension line, that is where I extended my crotch line, and I'll mark 9.5 inches. So you can see that the tape that I placed is not straight, it is slanted. So I'm going to use my chalk to indicate 9.5 inches on my fabric, okay? So I'm going to use my ruler to connect in a slanted form from the line that I extended my crotch to meet the new 9.5 inches that I have on my fabric. So this is now my new waistline for the back. So I'm going to use my chalk to indicate my hip point on my fabric, and then I'll connect from this new waistline to meet my hip line just like this. In case you are confused, I'm going to leave another link, okay, link of another pant tutorial that I have on my channel. I'm going to leave the link for you to watch. I'll use my chalk to trace out the sides of the pants, and I'll also connect from my crotch line to meet the base of the pants. After doing that, guys, I'm going to remove my pattern paper and then I'm going to cut. So guys, after cutting, this is what I have for the back. So for the back, you can go ahead and take in your dart. I'm not going to pleat the back. I'm going to just take in my dart and I'll sew in the excess fabric. So I'm going to place them right sides facing each other. I'll pin the crotch area and I'll go ahead and sew. Guys, the next piece I'm going to cut is my waistband. So my round waist measurement is 28 inches. I went ahead to add 2 extra inches to it. By the time I'm done sewing, I'm going to cut the extra inches out, and the wideness of this fabric is 5 inches. So I'm going to iron my hairstay in this fabric to give it strength, and then I'm going to fold half an inch in on both ends like this, and then I'll fold it over and I'll go ahead and iron it down. So by the time I'm done ironing, I'll be left with 2 inches, which is the 2 inches that we took out from the waist area before we started taking our measurements. So guys, that is all we'll be doing for this tutorial. Please stay tuned for the sewing version of this video. Thank you so much for watching. You can leave your questions in the comment section. I'll see you guys in the next one.